Good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime Shares with me, Kevin Britz, leading the charge with insights, information, and ultimately effective results. If you haven't yet, please like and share on your favorite platform to keep our channel growing. And joining me today in our leadership and marketing segment, we've got marketing and communications expert and co-host Craig Pagely. How are you doing, Craig?
Kevin, I'm great. Yeah, thanks. Good to be chatting today after a short stint in the bush in the past few days with some amazing friends. A long journey, but definitely worth almost 6 hours drive there and 6 hours drive back. Quality time, some great animal sightings, and I don't often get to go to the Kruger region, but thoroughly enjoyed it. I did arrive back in Johannesburg to a freezing town. How was your weekend?
No, I had a fantastic weekend. Had a birthday with my daughter's birthday. We had a bit of a Greek wedding, a Greek celebration, birthday celebration at a restaurant. So, and then a wonderful resting Sunday. But Craig, when you say going to the bush, it's one of the conversations I recently had with someone international. Is South Africa really does cater for everything? Like even this conversation, like you came back to a cold, wintry Johannesburg. It was just snowing in the Drakensberg Mountains, Lesotho Mountains, and you've just come back from the bush with wildlife. The spectrum of
Yeah, 26 degrees Celsius in the bush, coming back to Johannesburg at 2 degrees Celsius, full spectrum, exactly as you say, Kevin.
So as much as we have craziness in our country, we have some spectacular options to experience. Craig, so as part of today's show, give us a quick overview of what we chatted about last week.
Yeah, Kevin, thanks. So last week we reviewed 3 articles on the topic of sustainability and marketing. The first article was titled Navigating Sustainability and Marketing in 2025. The article was written by Diana Hernandez and published to onimodglobal.com on the 2nd of January, so a recent article. The second article was titled Sustainable Shifts Consumers Expect in the Next Decade. Some really good insights coming out of that. And that article was published by globescan.com. The third and final article, also published by globescan.com, was titled Young People Are Disengaging from Sustainability. And I know you and I had a particular focus on that at the end of last week. This, again, very current topic, 28th of May, it was published. So in reference to the conversation last week, Kevin, I want to remind our listeners that sustainability is not just about reducing carbon footprints. It's about aligning with consumer values, enhancing brand reputation, and driving long-term loyalty. It's really important to iterate the standout fact that digital marketing and advertising really are key drivers in shaping consumer behavior and attitudes towards sustainability. All 3 articles introduced us to a number of concepts on the topic and a number of trends on why sustainability matters in marketing. They're really easy to digest and read, and definitely worth revisiting for some of our listeners who might not have actually had the chance to listen to this.
It's a good conversation, guys. So go check it out on any of your YouTube or podcast channels. And Craig, moving on from that, I know that we're moving into a conversation leading from that. So what are we chatting about today?
Kevin, I want to focus on a specific point from the second article that we covered last week, this being the trend of digital sustainability. Again, quite a broad topic, but it's got some very specific areas of focus. And what we learned from this article that the digital realm isn't exempt from sustainability scrutiny, particularly in today's day and age. Fortunately, this has led to more and more companies actually optimizing their digital campaigns to try and reduce energy consumption, leveraging green web hosting, and then adopting a much more eco-friendly realm of technologies across their marketing stacks.
Craig, so I mean, this is not something I'm familiar with as well. I'm not sure about this term. So what is digital sustainability? What actually is
So, Kevin, the conversation today is going to be quite heavy because it is a lot of concepts that fit into this particular proposition, and there are a good number of articles I'm referencing again in the chat. So bear with me here. The first to open the answer on that question, I want to reference an article I came across on mightybytes.com. Never come across the blog site before, but definitely worth reading. And it notes the following: digital sustainability harnesses the tools of digital transformation, such as enhanced connectivity and the Internet of Things, to improve the environment and support sustainable business operations. But with the internet accounting for, take note, around 3.7% of global greenhouse gas emissions, it can be a tricky circle to square. Fortunately, there are already some well-established real world examples of how it can work. For example, smart building technologies can help building managers reduce the carbon footprint of parts of our built environment by optimizing energy use with the help of Internet of Things connectivity and artificial intelligence. Big data analytics can support and strengthen social safety nets that might otherwise be unable to identify, reach, and serve all of the potential beneficiaries. The issue in identifying how to use technology to solve a problem or strengthen an existing solution. And Kevin, this episode is by Bettina Pratt-Ryan, who's the research vice president at Gartner. Some brilliant articles published and points of view around this topic from Bettina. This particular article was published on the 25th of February this year. Again, very current relevant information. And the article was posted by Tom Frick, article titled Digital Sustainability, How to Get Started.
Okay, but what's interesting, if you just, 3.7% of the global greenhouse gases, and you kind of go, how the hell is the internet creating that? Because it doesn't occur to people that there's some kind of footprint there. But it's quite.
So Kevin, just on that point, now, just to add credence to the enormity of that statement, from another article I read, it ranges sort of 3.74%, but that has been equated to all of the airline travel in the world.
Well, that gives you good.
It just absolutely was like a smack in the head for me, and I went, "Oh my God, I cannot believe it." So yeah, a very important topic to focus on.
Yeah.
What we learned from the article, and according to really good academic research findings here, the definition of digital sustainability has evolved from this preservation and maintenance of digital content. If we go back 8 years to now how organizations actually use technology to advance sustainable development goals, those really coming to the fore in 2020. So a big shift where technology has actually been used as an advanced sustainable development, whereas before it was being pushed away because it had a negative connotation around sustainability. But here's another take from the Tim Frick article, and he's got a couple of posts out there. Digital sustainability is the process of applying social, economic, and environmental stewardship principles to digital products, services, and data delivered by the internet. Designers and developers might interpret this as a call to deliver more resource-efficient digital products, and they would be right. However, it goes both ways. Digital products and services can be used to advance sustainable efforts as well. So whilst there is the negative connotation, the proof point in the conversation we're going to have today, is that definitely digital products and services are enablers to actually advance sustainability efforts.
I think what's you mentioned, you started the conversation saying this is a heavy conversation. And I think what's important about just hearing it is our existence on the planet currently exists with data and in the Internet of Things, right? And we kind of can't exist without it. So we in this juxtaposition where, well, it's really impacting the environment to that degree, but we've designed our lives, to live life with it only, not the other way around.
Correct. But I mean, yeah, I was going to say predicated on the need for the consumption of technology and digital devices.
Yeah, we've positioned it that way so that, as a go-to obvious way of doing anything, it needs technology to that degree. But Craig, with all these moving parts, like how easy is it to achieve the digital sustainability? Because it doesn't even sound.
Exactly that. It's a massive question, an important question, Kevin. And again, referencing the Tim Frick article one more time, we note the following statement by a very important body in the world, the UN Environment Programme, their Codes of Action Plan. And here we note that digital transformation is globally pervasive, increasingly productivity, disrupting pre-existing business models and leading to, take note, diverse innovations with profound implications for the human future. This transformation has enormous potential to support progress towards sustainability. However, in its current form, it continues to enable and or encourage unsustainable practices that are degrading natural systems, entrenching inequality, and undermining human well-being. And that's a phenomenally powerful statement that comes out of a really simple question. How easy is it to achieve digital sustainability?
Yeah, and what's, never mind the whole Internet of Things, but what about the whole AI kind of conversation that lends itself to the Internet of Things now. So hopefully at some remarkable speed, AI can help us solve this conversation or solve this problem, because, you know, there
Kevin,
is...
I love that. Yeah. And the reason that statement appeals to me is, yeah, obviously the more information is being used in the machine learning process, the quicker we're going to get to the output of information that we're seeking. Hopefully we'll get to a plateau where we're not using more unsustainable energy to create the answers and insights that we depend on in our decision making. That will be at a point where we've usurped to that benchmark, that the next level of information input generates a quicker answer and enables us to get to that endpoint much quicker. But just jumping back to the UN Environment Programme's Code Actions Plan, I want to contextualize some of that for you, Kevin. The program Codes of Action Plan was co-authored by 1,000 contributors from around the world, interestingly, including Mighty Bytes, which is the article I opened the conversation with. And these sort of contributors have really helped unpack a very detailed action plan on what we need to be doing and considering to ensure that we achieve digital sustainability. Even it was the Code of Action Plan was released on the 50th anniversary of the Stockholm Conference on the Human Environment, that anniversary being 2022. And the plan represents the most comprehensive effort to date to explore this incredible statement of the intersectionality between digital technology and sustainability. And again, what absolutely amazed me is that this, as a reality in the existence of mankind, is a conversation that's been going on for 50 odd years. At the 50th anniversary of the Stockholm Conference on Human Environment, digital now has a big center space of the conversation. And Kevin, the plan calls for three fundamental systemic shifts to implement sustainable digital transformation. The first being enable alignment. And this is about aligning digital technology and sustainability with common purpose by developing standards, training, and fostering cross-sector action. Absolutely essential. The second systematic shift that it talks about is to mitigate negative impacts. And I think that really should be the first systematic shift, because the minute we start mitigating negative impacts, we all start working towards a common purpose. So this is about commitment to sustainable digitization that mitigates negative social and environmental impacts of digital technologies such as emissions, e-waste, and this big digital divide. And then the third and an important point here is accelerate innovation. Accelerate digital innovation for sustainability through labs, through workshops, through the amazing circular economy principles, and then prioritize a just transition, Kevin. And for me, the takeout statement of going through that heavy set of content to understand those 3 points is that accomplishing these shifts can help transform society and business models to a more sustainable and equitable world.
Okay, so, and, you know, breaking it down like that gives us more obvious go-to immediates for you know, implementing the sustainable transformation. But with that intersection, I think it's intersectionality that's between the digital technology and sustainability. Can you explain what that is, Chris?
Yeah, so again, there are some phenomenal papers discussing the concept, but I'm going to reference a takeout from I think it was 4 articles that I addressed to answer this particular question. And, you know, the good old AI realm definitely helped me synthesize feedback from those 4. Article 1 is Digitization and Sustainability, a call for the digital Green Deal. I quite like that as a topic. This was published to ScienceDirect.com, Environmental Science and Policy Journal, Volume 147, September 147 on September 2023. Article 2 is The Relationship of Digital Transformation and Corporate Sustainability. Really fascinating topic. Also published to ScienceDirect.com, this time the Technology Forecasting and Social Change Journal, Volume 210, very recent, Jan 2025. Article 3, The Intersection of Sustainability and Digital Transformation, and published to the Porto Business School, even more recently, 17th of March 2025. And finally, Article 4, really interesting article, The Intersection of Technology and Sustainability Driving Green Innovation. This is an article written by Dr. Priyank Kushik, published to the MLJCS.in, which is the International Machine Learning Journal and Computer Engineering. So really deep, insightful content being able to draw from to answer this question. So a lot of the papers input those, and AI provided a really nice collective opening paragraph to that question, Kevin, and it reads as follows. The intersection between digital technology and sustainability highlights how technology can be a powerful tool for driving environmentally and socially responsible practices. Digital technologies can be used to improve environmental monitoring, enhance resource efficiency, and promote sustainable practices across various sectors. The intersection also involves addressing potential negative impacts of digital technologies themselves, ensuring that their development and use aligns with the broader sustainability.
Yeah, Craig, and I think that, what's important about that is, it is an intersection between those two, and when we start seeing it from those two angles, it makes more sense. It's more clarity.
So then again, to just advance that particular point, there's some key aspects of this intersectionality that were highlighted in one or two of the articles. And I want to reference the first, starting with the concept of digital technologies as enablers of sustainability. And the first point within this particular concept, Kevin, is environmental monitoring and analysis. And here we learn that digital tools like sensors, drones, and satellite imagery do provide real-time data on environmental conditions, allowing for better monitoring and early detection of issues. Interestingly, on that point, just to sort of transgress a bit, the wine industry, I know in South Africa and California in particular, drones are able to fly over the vineyards. They are able to see hotspots based on the growth maturation of the vines, and they can then go and start picking those particular vines. They don't wait for the collective to be ready and waste certain volumes and things like that. So, definitely technology as an enabler there. The second point on this concept is resource efficiency. And here we're learning that technologies like the IoT and AI help optimize resource usage in various sectors, from, for instance, smart grids for energy efficiency, and we're seeing that energy is being shaped and shifted to reduce the whole principle of load shedding in South Africa, or for precision agriculture for water conservation, and how it's able to direct water to certain farms at certain times based on the needs demand at that point in time.
Craig, what's interesting is there's a huge position that quite a few generations are holding about the importance of sustainability. What's interesting, I'm just thinking about digital technology and why no one is using the digital technology to reinforce certain behaviors or certain awarenesses. But I look at Apple, for example. They've just launched their new software across all their devices, and not one of those things mentions the awareness of the sustainability or the importance of that, or the awareness that the brand has to it. It's fascinating to see that some of the most important, biggest brands in the world don't make mention of these important factors.
That's a really interesting statement. Yeah, but I think what we're not seeing is the heavy investments on the back end to drive sustainability, to produce more sustainable products, as opposed to talking about it in the software enablement. But that really is a very good statement, Kevin. Maybe it comes out in the next article, because one of the next articles, at least next concepts, talks about negative impacts of digital technology. But before getting there, I want to touch on the supply chain aspect of concept one again, just to reiterate, digital technologies as enablers of sustainability. And the supply chain transparency teaches us that blockchain technology and other digital tools can enhance supply chain traceability, ensuring ethical and sustainability of sourcing of materials. And we know, Nike was definitely at fault for child labor at times and poor product sourcing and things like that. In this instance, if Apple are not providing products that are digitally sustainable, they'll be very, very quickly called out on this. The fourth point on this concept is sustainable business practice. And here we learn that digital transformation can help companies implement and actually showcase their sustainability practices and initiatives more effectively, attracting environmentally conscious consumers and investors. And maybe this is a lost opportunity for Apple, because I also know that they've launched the new software and products, but you're right, I've not seen a single statement around sustainability in this regard. And then finally, on this concept, the promoting sustainable consumption, we learn that digital platforms can facilitate access to information about sustainable products and services, encouraging consumers to make more informed choices. And I think one of the technology developments to support that principle is the standardization of USB ports and plugs, across the mobile telephony market and computer market to ensure that there is less production of different iterations and less need to buy more products in this particular realm.
Yeah, and I think my point around Apple is just to emphasize is, they haven't had a major overhaul on their Apple software since 2018. So they've made iterations and changes and upgrades to it. But this is a major overhaul, and that's why even the naming has moved down up to, the new software iOS 26. So it's not even made mention. So if you're doing something that major and you're gonna, it's globally, just to lend itself to drive the feel good factor or the awareness factor into that conversation, I think that's really missing, especially when you look at, digital transformation and what it could be doing. So it's something, like it's definitely a conversation to have. You mentioned we might have a speaker on the show, and that's the kind of thing that how do we raise that conversation even further?
That's interesting. Just as you asked the question, I'm reading this in real time now. As you're asking it, I was typing the question in, and it says the new iOS is specifically related to hardware like Apple iPhone 16, which shows significant progress towards sustainability by incorporating recycled materials, reducing emissions, and using renewable energy. So you're right. They absolutely have not spoken about that. For example, the iPhone 16 uses recycled aluminium, lithium, and gold, and Apple is working to transition all suppliers to 100% low carbon electricity. Apple is also reducing emissions by using low carbon intensive shipping methods and optimizing packaging. Boom, there it is. And Kevin, that's a damn good point you make, because it's not spoken about anyway.
Well, and that's why, like, I'm just saying, this has been a big major thing. They've been announcing it on all social medias, and it's, just that one liner, or, as part of the feel good factor, or like, guys, we are also paying attention to this for being one of the most, one of the biggest brands we have in the world. Why is there not just something said about it? That's a conversation that I'm curious about.
Yeah, agreed. I'm going to try and thread that into the potential guest we've got lined up for the next show, which goes into product sustainability, the likes of Unilever and things like that. So I think that's a perfect add-on to that conversation. But just, moving to the concept of addressing the negative impacts of digital technology, the first point on this particular concept is energy consumption of digital devices, or interestingly, a perfect segue from the Apple conversation into this concept. Here we learn that the production, operation, and disposal of digital devices have environmental impacts. Obviously, sustainable design and recycling initiatives are crucial to mitigating these impacts. The second point on this concept is data centers and carbon footprint. Big challenge to the planet. Here we learn that data centers which power these digital devices consume significant amounts of energy, as we heard, just about as much as all airplanes flying in a year. Sustainable energy sources and energy efficient designs are essential for reducing their carbon footprint, a great challenge to the designers in this particular instance. The third point is e-waste management. Kevin, here we learned that the growing volume of electronic waste poses a significant environmental challenge. Sustainable e-waste management practices are absolutely crucial, including the concept of recycling and responsible disposal. And I mentioned the standardization of ports for chargers on phones and laptops and things like that. That evolution is a direct response to this particular challenge. And then the fourth point is ethical considerations. And here we learn that the development and deployment of digital technologies must consider ethical issues related to privacy, data, security, and social impact.
And as you adding to this now, Craig, I'm just thinking, at a certain level, when a brand reaches a certain level, especially worldwide, there's an obligation that there should be an obligation that they have to sustainability, and it should be really marketed that way so that people are actually seeing what they do. I'm mentioning it, as you say, what they're doing with the efforts with the iPhone. Like, I'm an Apple user. I don't know any of that, so it's not, and maybe it's just me, but maybe I should read more. But yeah, essentially, I think there could be more, right?
But again, I love this conversation. You referencing Apple in here. There's a wonderful screen view capability which shows you your battery usage, your screen time usage, etc., etc. How can that be adapted into a little real time app button on the device that's actually showing you your negative contribution to unsustainable practice by overusing your device and things like that. And, in a way, that will probably help people just get a bit of disengagement and close down time to come back to the reality of the senses of the beautiful world around you and not just everything that's on screen.
Well, Craig, as because we're speaking about digital tech, right? And we're thinking, how do we become more sustainable? And we know that humans are quite influenceable on their behaviors. That's why Facebook
Yes.
does what it does. So as you say, if you had a little battery pack sort of icon that kind of shows you, from all the energy you're using right now, this is the impact that it's having on your footprint. Like, what is your footprint? And just having the awareness, like a visible awareness, like no one's doing it, but you're like, and I think of the two major brands being Samsung and Apple. Like, just from a digital perspective, they could do it. They could do better.
Now imagine if they took a socially conscious step forward as well, and they actually said we're having so many mental and emotional issues with too much screen time, and actually over a period of time got to understand the consumption of screen time relative to business, the consumption of screen time relative to social media nonsense, and the consumption of screen time relative to family need, and basically gave you pause moments in that process and allowed you to set that mechanism and trigger that you actually disengage with it, go for a walk, smell the fresh air, go and stand in the sunshine and get some vitamin D, and build some sort of stop points into your life to bring you back to a healthier being. That's just a concept I thought of as we're chatting here.
But like, to that point, Greg, and that's why I'm raising this, because what if it was part of the ethical approach that you took to getting all these users on your devices? What if ethics was part of that conversation, so that you are also responsible? Yeah, use the device, do what you do. It's tech, it's the future, fantastic. But we're going to alert you, whether you like it or not. We're going to alert you that there's an ethical part of that. We're responsible for your mental health, because we know the decline of, and we like suicide. If you just consider suicide in the world and the trajectory of what's happening around it, and and I'm not saying this is the truth, but there's a lot of evidence to prove that technology is separating people, humans, from each other, right? So it's creating a loneliness epidemic. So there's lots of things more. There's more practical things we could be doing, that brands like this could be thinking through, that they're not
It's
doing.
the beauty of the socially conscious brands, bringing you
Yeah.
back to spending more face-to-face time, not discarding the fact that they're technology brands, but using information to feed in conversation stimulants and starters that you actually leave the device and you have those in person, kind of thing. And we could have a wonderful conversation on this, Kevin. Yes. The final concept that we talk about here is the examples of intersection, Kevin. And here we note that an example of intersection is smart cities. It's about using digital technologies to optimize urban infrastructure and layout, improving energy efficiency, and most definitely key point in reducing the pollution population. Precision agriculture. In fact, I started alluding to it in terms of monitoring the growth of the grapes in key wine farms. This is about using sensors and AI to optimize resource usage, reduce waste, and improve crop yields. Renewable energy, digital technologies are absolutely crucial for managing and integrating renewable energy sources into the powering of grids. And the last point here is sustainable energy supplies, using digital tools to track materials, to ensure ethical sourcing, and again, most importantly, to reduce waste. And Kevin, yeah, from the four articles referenced, we conclude by noting the following. In essence, the intersection of digital technology and sustainability offers immense opportunities to address the global challenges and build a more sustainable future. By embracing a holistic approach, we can harness the power of digital technologies, create a greener, more equitable, and more sustainable world. Let's get to see which brands are the ones stepping in to enable this to be a reality.
Yeah, no, and I think that's what's interesting about this conversation is there has to be a consistency of conversation like this, because it's not going to go away, but the more we speak about it, the more awareness there is built around it, and I think it's not enough yet, but at least it's a good start, I think. So yeah, fascinating conversation, and it's going to be interesting to chat to the guest speaker.
I like that. Yeah. Fun and hand in hand. It is. It is. It's just we all have a role to play in the small way of just dropping screen time for a while, switching off the next light when you're not in the same room. Every action and behavior that we deliver in our daily lives actually are all contributors to this particular concept. Again, if it's really then about understanding the energy consumption of Google running in the background, waiting for a command, what is the negative net impact of all of the Googles waiting for the commands around the world versus that extra bit of light time that the light is shining? Correct. Brilliant. Yeah, look forward to next week. Thanks, Kevin. Cheers. It is still rolling. No, it's still rolling. It's gone. Hello. Oh, there you go.